When building out a setup for your YouTube studio, there are so many things to take into consideration, from all the gear that you need to buy and then actually how to set it up so that it looks best on camera. And so that's why in this video, we're gonna be breaking down some of our setups here at Think Media, and we're gonna kick it off with Nolan's dream setup, which he actually has dialed so that he can go from not shooting to shooting in under 5 seconds.
Let me prove it to you. 3, 2, 1. Hey Google, turn on my lights. Ready to film? I wanna show you exactly how to set up something just like this that's gonna save you tons of time, and I'm gonna show you everything that I use to shoot these Think Media videos as a solo creator. Hey guys, my name is Nolan with Think Media. Now let's jump into the camera and lens setup that I use to shoot these videos. But before I even get into that, I wanna tell you guys that a lot of this stuff, you don't have to get exactly what I use, but a lot of these tips and concepts are gonna be really helpful to you guys, no matter what camera you use, no matter what microphone you use or light you use. A lot of this stuff, you can just get what I get, and all the links are gonna be in the description. But if you have a different camera or a different microphone, these are gonna give you some really good ideas specifically for those of us who shoot videos all alone. With that being said, I'm gonna give you a little behind the scenes look with this camera right here. As I talk through this stuff, I'll show you guys exactly what I'm using and how I'm using it. We'll start with the camera, which is right here, which is the Sony a7S Mark III. And we have the 20mm f1.8 lens. This is a really great setup. I love using this camera. It's fantastic for all these videos. It's like top of the line, best YouTube camera that you can buy. So overkill for most of you guys out there, but if you want the best camera, this is definitely a good camera to go with. Now you can see right here that I'm not using a tripod. It's actually being held on this pole, which is called an impact vari-pole. All this stuff is gonna be linked up in the description, so make sure you check that out. Now the impact vari-pole is so cool, and I actually have 2 of them. So you can see up here, it goes all the way to the ceiling, and then it goes all the way underneath my desk to the ground. And right now this is actually holding up my microphone. It's holding up my camera. So it's really cool. And then I have another one, which I'll get to, that goes on my ceiling, which is holding a light, which I will show you guys a little bit later. So the camera is connected to this vari-pole by a super clamp. This is the super clamp right here. And then this is an extension arm. And then from the camera to the extension arm, we have this ball head. This allows me to really easily just move the camera and to set it up, make sure that it's level. Now, the other thing that you'll notice connected to this vari-pole is going to be this podcast arm, where I actually keep my shotgun microphone, and it's just really easy to move, so I can bring it into the frame like this. And then if I want to bring it out of the frame, which is where I keep it, I can pull it up just out of the frame, and that works perfectly for me. I have my wires all just down here running straight into the camera, so my audio is going to be synced directly into my camera. Now, because the super clamp is right here, I was actually able to connect my podcast arm directly to the handle of that super clamp. Now, as far as my main key light, I have it in this softbox right here, and this is the only light that I use as my key light. I don't have any sort of fill light, and the reason for that is because when you have a key light that is close enough to you and it's big enough, it actually wraps around really nicely, adds a soft light, so you don't really need a fill light. And I actually prefer a little bit of shadows on this side of my face just to add a little more contrast to the shot. Now, inside this main key light, it's kind of weird. I basically have this LED panel, so it's super light, and it's taped inside of this softbox. This softbox actually came with a $50 light. So this isn't necessarily something I'd really recommend. It's just super lightweight. And originally I was just using that LED panel in the metal frame that it came with, but I wanted a softer light, and that's why I threw it inside of this softbox. But what I can do is actually leave a recommended light down in the description for you guys if you don't want to go this route, because I don't necessarily recommend it. One thing I love about it though is this remote right here. I can turn it off, I can turn it on really easily, really fast, turn up the brightness if I want to turn it up, I can turn it back down. So that's really nice to have those capabilities in this light, but it did take a little bit of finessing to get that LED light actually taped up to this softbox. Now on my actual light stand, you're gonna see I have this little tabletop thing right here. This is perfect just for extra storage. So this is for my camera, where I can like use the screwdriver, I can use the flathead to take all of this stuff off for the tripod. I have my lens caps so I don't lose those. I have my remote, I just keep that right here. I have my gray card right here so I can custom white balance my videos, and that all lives right here. I use these all the time, so I like to keep them just connected to the light. And this is something I bought as an add-on. I think it's meant for a mic stand, but I thought it would work perfectly, and it totally has. One other thing I noticed when I was shooting B-roll, or if I was shooting thumbnails, I wanted to move this light around a lot, and so I actually got a stand that had wheels. So down here you can see that the light does have wheels on it, and this makes it super easy to move around my room. If I want to get a quick thumbnail thumbnail, a quick B-roll shot, I can just move this thing over, or I can actually roll it over to my desk and use that for live streaming or conference calls. Another thing you're gonna notice here is I have this desk, and this is just a cheap IKEA desk. It's not even in the shot of my YouTube videos, but it is helpful for holding stuff. Usually I got my water right over here, and so I'll leave this on my desk. And then I have my script and a little phone holder to keep my script here. Sometimes it is actually on my iPad, but sometimes I use my iPad as a wireless video monitor for my Sony camera. So that's been really, really helpful. But whether it's my monitor here or whether it's my script, both of these are always out in case I need to use those. I always have my script out because I always need to look down and see what I'm gonna talk about next. Now, there's a few other things that really excite me. I think these are gonna give you guys some great ideas. Let's start with my backlight, which actually isn't on right now. So this is a good test. This is what it looks like with no backlight on. And this is what it looks like with that backlight turned on. It's just a subtle difference, but I really like what it's doing to the shot. It makes it look like the lamp is actually illuminating my shoulder, the top of my head. And I think it just helps me pop off of the background just a little bit more. Now, the awesome part about this setup is typically if you want to have a light like this, you need a C-stand and sandbags and all that kind of stuff. And if you're a solo creator, you don't have the time to set all of that up every single time you want to film a video. And it takes up a lot of space because I know a lot of us are using our home as an office. And so no go for me. So what I've done is I took another Impact Varipole, and I'll leave a link in the description to the video where I talk about these Varipoles and how I use them, but that is running from wall to wall. And then basically I can just attach whatever I want to these Varipoles using the super clamps. Even though this pole was on my wall for months and I had no issues, I still wanted a little bit of safety in there. So what I did is I actually attached this clamp up there, and that is just underneath it in case it ever were to fall off the wall. Again, it's been up there for months with 3 lights on there and it's never fallen. But just in case, I had that set up so if it were to fall, that clamp would actually catch it and not let it fall. And on the other end, it's just above my photo backdrop, so that's gonna catch it if it ever were to come off the wall. I'm not worried about it, but it definitely makes me not worry at all about this thing ever falling down. Another cool feature I did was I attached the light to this switch, which goes into an outlet, and the switch basically just turns it off or turns it on. So anytime I hit that switch, it's right by my filming station. Everything's right here. I can turn it on, turn it off, all right by my desk. Now that backlight and the key light are the only lights that are lighting me, but we actually have some other lights going on. You can see the blue hues in the background. I have that lamp. I also have some lights on my desk that I can change the colors, and it's all connected to my Google Home. And all of these lights are by Govee. They're cheaper than the Philips hues and they just work amazing. There's no flicker for videos, and so I love using these for my YouTube setup.
Man, what a fire setup. Absolutely love the symmetry of Nolan's YouTube Studio because it really just makes it so easy to look at. But the next setup I actually wanna break down is our video podcast setup where we shoot the Think Media podcast. We actually go deeper on YouTube strategy and talk about the creator economy. We talk about entrepreneurship, and this setup is pretty legit. And so really the big thing is to pull out the principles, the gems from this setup. But let's break down the Think Media podcast setup. I do want to preface before we get into the gear that we invest in high quality equipment specifically for this podcast. You know, some of the gear we're actually using, we've been using for almost 2 years, which is something to note that when you're investing into gear, if you buy the right thing, you won't have to buy it again. And the real reason is because of how influential a podcast could be. All the way from dropping those videos on YouTube to all the platforms that you can consume a podcast audibly, but also on Instagram and TikTok. When we post micro clips from the podcast, we wanna make sure we're able to retain the quality of the podcast no matter what we do with it. And so with that being said, let's jump into the audio setup of this thing, which is the Shure SM7B. Hands down, this is the industry standard podcast mic, you know, that's been around for almost 20 years. But the difference is how it sounds. Right now you're listening to the lavalier mic that I have on my jacket, but let's switch to the SM7B right now. So as you can hear, it sounds like your legit podcast radio show voice. And this is because it's a dynamic microphone, but this mic isn't cheap. It's about a $400 mic, but you can't just use it all by itself. Obviously you see the stand, you can get a boom arm, which is cool, but we like to use a stand. And then we actually are running one XLR cable because we are using what is called a FET head preamp, which plugs right into our XLR input, which is actually really nice and clean and minimal. We used to use the Cloud Lifter, which required 2 XLRs, and it got a little bit much, and we just want to keep things simple, clean, and only have what we need, right? So this is the SM7B. I'm super proud to say that we've customized the back plate to this, used a Cricut machine, spray painted the back plate that came with this, and then added our Think logo. Maybe I'll make like a video tutorial or a YouTube short on how you can do that. But this is definitely the mic for podcasting. There's obviously tons you can go with, and we've done reviews on tons of mics like this, but we wanted the best of the best, so the Shure SM7B is how we capture the audio. Now, when it comes to audio, the mics you use are a part of it, but the sound treatment is a whole nother flow. Now, we have this upstairs lobby outfitted with the sound panels that you can buy off of a website that will be linked down in the description below, and you can get different colors and things like that. But this loft that we use to create our content with is literally a box with hardwood floors, and so it gets really echoey. But we wanted to make sure we invested into the sound treatment of this room as much as possible, and so you can see in the footage that we've outfitted this whole loft to include the stairwell because there's some bouncing of audio. Kyle Anderson on the team just knew what to do, and so we just went with the flow. Another thing that you can add to your setup is carpet. Anything that can absorb the audio bouncing will help with your audio, but keep in mind, it's not just the mics, it's also the room treatment. And so a carpeted room or a sound treated room is something you want to take into consideration when conducting a legit video podcast. All right, so when it comes to the camera, we always encourage people, if you're doing a podcast, turn a camera on, whether it be your smartphone or an actual camera like this. And the camera we use is a Sony FX3. This is about a $36 or so $100 camera, and it's like an entry-level cinema camera, meaning it doesn't really have any record limits. It shoots great 4K video, and it won't overheat or anything like that. So it's very reliable in that sense. Another reason why we love this camera is it literally comes with XLR inputs. We used to use a Zoom recorder, but what we love about this is it bakes in a very high quality audio file into the video itself. And what does that mean? It just simply means that the video file has the audio file from the Shure SM7Bs. And then you can also monitor and tweak this, with the analog dials, which is super nice. As far as the lens we use the Tamron 35 to 150 millimeter lens. This is a super versatile zoom lens for any camera, and whether we have one person on or two people on, just allows you to get the shot without having to do too much movement. So when we just need one camera, this is the camera we're using. When we need a secondary angle, we use a Sony a7S III, and we're looking to get a third body to add in for 3 angles. But those are the cameras we used. We love them. They're great with autofocus, they're great with reliability, and they look super crispy. Now, this would be the perfect time to share about the sponsor of this video, which is Podcastle. If you've been thinking about starting a podcast, creating one in high quality has never been easier with Podcastle's studio quality podcast creation platform. Whether you want to do a solo podcast or one with multiple people, Podcastle lets you record up to 10 remote guests at a time, and get this, each participant is recorded locally and on separate tracks, so you can capture 4K quality video and super crisp, lossless quality audio, regardless of what internet speed or connection you have. It's super easy for your guests also because they don't need a Podcastle account. Just share the link to the studio and they're in. Or schedule the podcast interviews in advance, and the platform will actually sync up with your Google Calendar to send invites and reminders. Podcastle also has a mobile app for recording and exporting your content on the go. They truly make it as simple as possible to produce your podcast, and you should really consider starting a podcast this year, and let Podcastle help you to get that done. We'll post a link to them down in the description below if you'd like to try Podcastle free. Thank you, Podcastle, for sponsoring this video. Now, as far as lighting goes, we really want to make sure that we have a dynamic looking podcast setup, but let's start with the key lights. The first light that we use is the GVM 300D. This is the main light that is used to light the faces of Sean and Heather. And what's cool about this light is it is super powerful, but what's also cool is it has a Bowens mount, which is a universal light mount that allows you to put something like this on it, which is our lantern softbox. And so it's not as directional, it's actually more wide of a light, and it creates a nice soft light, and it fills up for 2 people, which is super cool. And then we actually fill in some of those shadows on their faces by bouncing another light onto the ceiling. And it just fills those shadows because we don't want such a dramatic look, an intense look. This is a very lighthearted podcast. We're trying to teach you YouTube tips. By the way, if you haven't subscribed to the Think Media podcast, why don't you go do so right now? We'll post links down in the description below. But those are the key lights. That's what we are using to light their faces. And then in the back, you'll see a lot of accent lighting, like you could see behind me even right now. We use warm lighting in the back just to create a more inviting and welcoming vibe. And one new addition that I'm super excited about is the fake window that you see right here. This is actually an effect that can be achieved with a cob light and a snoot. The combination of the two allows you to create a cool effect, and if you want a fake window or if you want some other shape, you can switch it out with the gobos that are included, or you can actually customize some. We've actually created some custom ones that are on their way to the studio, which I'm pumped about. But all that to say, just a cool dynamic that we've added into a lot of our studio setups here at Think Media. But in regards to accent lighting, we just throw some lamps, kind of splash some lights here and there. And then the last type of lighting I would say is the hair light we use. We just use a panel light, put it on a warm setting like all the other accent lights, and we splash that on our talent to create a hair light which separates them from the background, creating a more dynamic look and what you would call motivated lighting, which is a technique they use in a lot of Hollywood setups. So that's our video podcast setup, and we're always trying to find new ways to make it better, whether it sounds better or look better, but we are really pumped at where it's at right now. And because we're always testing new gears and making updates to our current setups, I've learned a lot to how to design your space. So in this video, I actually show you how to design your office, especially if you have a smaller space like mine, and get 4 different shots out of it. So let's jump into that one right now. But tip number 1 when it comes to setting up your YouTube studio home office is to pick at least 2 walls, and if you could do 3 walls, even better, that you design. Most YouTubers, when they start out, they only design 1 wall and it gives you 1 shot. But if you like to switch it up like I do, then just follow along in this video. So behind me, you see a very simple kind of homey setup. I have a tree in front of the door that leads to my office. That's a fake tree from IKEA. That is a chest thing called the Fajablo from IKEA that you see behind me, a floating shelf from IKEA, and a lamp from IKEA that's in the corner. No, this video is not sponsored by IKEA, but you can go to places like Home Goods, maybe go on OfferUp or Facebook Marketplace to get things to make your wall look good. But this wall all by itself is super clean. Now, I'll take that plant typically and I'll grab it because it's lightweight and fake, and I'll put it over here to have it in this shot because I just like plants in my shots. And this would be the second wall that I have intentionally designed. But as you can see, I got my plant, I have a extended calendar, and by the way, links down to everything as well as recommendations in the description below, so check that out. Then I have another chair from IKEA and a little coffee table that I plan on using to podcast, but that's not what this video is for. But this is my second wall, giving me a second look. Now, having these 2 walls intentionally designed to be used as a background to my videos allows me to get these 2 shots, as well as a 3rd shot like this one right here. And this is me just sitting in the corner of the 2 walls, giving me a 3rd angle from just 2 walls. But I didn't even show you the 2 other walls, with one being the one you'll never see. Maybe later in the video I'll show you that wall that nobody will ever see. But flipping this around gives me the shot with my computer in the background, which is this shot. And this is the shot I use when I want my computer as my background, which is something you can always do. A lot of people think they need the computer to be in front of them to make their videos, but you can actually use it as your background as well. But this gives me the 4th look, and I like using this when I'm doing editing tutorials or talking about live streaming and things like that. But having 3 walls dedicated as my background when filming videos almost gives me the ability to get a 360-degree studio where everything looks good in the shot as long as my camera is pointed in a certain direction with a little bit of movement and flexibility. And so make sure you pick at least 2 walls, and if you can 3, to deck out for your background. Had some lunch with the fam, hence the outfit change, but it's okay. Tip number 2 is to keep your YouTube setup simple. Complexity is the enemy of execution, and if you have 1,000 stands in your office, moving your lights, your tripod, your mic stand, and all that stuff, then you're actually probably not gonna even film videos, and even more so, you're not gonna have the flexibility to be able to switch up your shot as needed. The 3rd tip allows me to make videos like this when I'm doing an editing tutorial or I just need to move my desk from its current position. But that tip is to use mounts and wheels. mounts and wheels. I put wheels on every surface that I have in my office, to include this desk and the desk that I just used in the last clip. That last table was from IKEA, and you can buy the stands with wheels on them, but even having wheels on my actual desk allows me to move it around for the need of live streaming, Zoom conference calls, consultations, and things like that. And when it comes to mounts, it really is just the idea of mounting things when you can do it. I have 2 Very poles in my office, and essentially these are tension rods that go across my ceiling and hold things like my hair light, as well as my fake window light that I have in some of my shots. But having these things mounted up just eliminates the needs for more stands. Now, I didn't break this down earlier in this video, but my desk actually lives inside of a closet that I removed all the stuff from and painted it black to actually house my desk. And what this has allowed is it allowed me to get more space in my office. And so if you are using a bedroom, think about doing something like that. And it's all good because my desk is on wheels, I can pull it out. But being able to tuck away my desk, and usually when I'm working and I'm not gonna film anything, that's where I have it. And speaking of mounts, I just wanted to show you my desk setup real quick. This thing is all about mounts. It's like, bro, it's Mount Everest up in here. Everything I have, whether it's the mic or the monitors, it is mounted. Bro, my Mac Mini is mounted. Dog, mounting up on wings like eagles, you know what I'm saying? But the next tip that I have for you is audio treatment. Audio is 50% of the video viewing experience, and you want to have some audio treatment in your office, whether that be carpet, like your boy went to IKEA, bought some nice little mid-century green carpet, which is one way to do that. But I actually have sound blankets. Again, links down to everything in the description below. But I have a sound blanket hung over that window. This is, by the way, this is the ugly wall. This is the wall you'll never see. Congratulations, you saw it. So I have this sound blanket. I also have a sound panel hanging on there. And then I also have a sound panel hanging where I typically sit for live streams and things like that. But having these things in my office has eliminated a lot of the echo and reverb that my room would create, as it is a tiled room. Like I have like concrete looking tile. And so take some time to make the investment into treating your room for audio so that you can have that drippy, crispy audio. You know what I'm saying? This is kind of a bonus tip, but if you can help it, try and get a piece of paper or a photo backdrop going somewhere in your office, even if it's used to cover a window, for the use of thumbnails. Like I don't really shoot videos against this, but I be smacking thumbnails like, hey, what's up? Hey, what's that? You know, doing things like that, as well as even like the tech that I, take photos of. I take in front of this, and honestly, I'm able to do wonders when it comes to thumbnails. And that's just a bonus tip, but I hope you got some ideas on how you can adjust your space to get a few more different shots out of it. Now the next setup is actually what I use to film the videos in my office, and I think it's perfect for talking head videos similar to this, and I'll talk through everything I use to achieve this shot, from the mic, the camera, the lights. The first thing I wanted to break down was my audio setup. And so I got a second camera to show you kind of what I got going on. So for my audio setup, I actually have a very simple and cheap mic, and links down to everything down in the description below. If you wanna check out those links, check out the links down in the description below. But a very simple mic setup that's actually boomed onto my table, so I don't have to have any stands and things like that. But as far as the mic that I'm using the Deity D4 Mini. This is about a $40 or $50 mic. This mic sounds phenomenal, and I just have an aux cable, super cheap, Amazon basic aux cable that plugs right into the camera. And so this is a super simple and minimal setup. The arm is about $40. So you're talking about under $100 all-in mic setup, and I absolutely love how it looks because you don't see it, and I love how it sounds. Now, audio makes up for 50% of the video viewing experience, so you wanna make sure that you get good audio, but it doesn't have to break the bank like mine. Now, when it comes to the camera setup, I'm so pumped because you already know I love the Sony ZV-E10. This is a compact 4K camera that shoots great video and has incredible autofocus, and you never have to worry about being out of focus. And I have a continuous power adapter, so I don't have to worry about batteries, which is a very smart investment if you don't want your batteries to die. But we've made tons of videos on this camera. It's totally one of my favorites, especially for just simple videos. As far as the lens goes, I got the infamous Sigma 16mm lens, and this lens gives you a perfect medium wide shot. So if you're doing YouTube talking head, it is perfect. And I actually have a tape measure because I wanted to show you how far the camera is away from me. And so as far as where the lens is, we're talking about 30 inches away. And so it's about, 2 arms length distance, and it gives me this great look in my nice little small office. Cool little life hack that I like to do is actually use a wireless remote to start and stop recording. Now this is the vlog grip, but you don't need this. It's a very inexpensive purchase to buy a wireless remote to start and stop recording for really any camera that you use, and I would encourage it. And one thing that I actually use it for to make my editing faster is when I have a good take, I just end the recording. Because now that I know in editing when the clip ends, it's gonna be a good take right before that clip ends. And so that'll just speed up some of your workflow. And so that is the Sony ZV-E10 with the Sigma lens. And one thing I absolutely love about the Sony ZV-E10 is its ability to be used for live streaming or Zoom conference calls with the use of a USB-C cable. That's it. No special software or hardware, just select the camera in whatever you are using, and then you can actually level up your Zoom calls or live streams. Now the tripod that I have my camera on is a fairly inexpensive, compact Manfrotto tripod with a ball head mount, which I absolutely love. It lets you get the perfect leveled shot. And I got a quick release system that allows me to take on and off the camera as needed. And if you want to extend the height of this tripod, you totally can with the 3 different levels, as well as the center column. It actually extends higher. I would say the only downside of this tripod is if you want to stand up and film, it's probably not going to go as tall as you need it to go. However, for sitting in a stool or a chair like I am, it is perfect for that. And so that is the Manfrotto compact tripod. Now when it comes to lighting, lighting is really what makes any camera you use, whether it's your smartphone or a super expensive camera, look its best. It is lighting that really brings out the best of any camera you use. And so when it comes to my key light, or the light that's lighting my face, I am using an Amaran 60D with a large lantern. And so I'm gonna actually back up, swap the angle real quick, and as you can see, this little beast hiding behind here is the Amaran 60D, which I actually like this version because it's not bicolored. It gives you the temperature that you need for your face. It also is battery powered if you want it to be, and that's how I'm using it right now, but you could totally plug it in. It comes with the plug that you need. And then the lantern is a GVM lantern, but all these things, again, I'll post down in the description below, but this is my key light. It's producing a very soft and large light on my face. And what I really like about this light is also its wireless remote. So if I need to turn it off and on, I can do so. And if I want to change the intensity, I can do so as well. Sorry if I ruined your eyes with that, but very convenient light. I've been using it for about a year now. That is the Amaran 60D. Now you could totally stop there with just a good key light. And as you can see in the back, I got a little lamp in the back, which is nice. If I turn it off, that's kind of like meh. But then you turn it on, ooh, it's nice and warm and welcome, you know what I'm talking about? But there are 2 other lights that really make this shot super dynamic and allow me to pop out from the background. The first one being my hair light or rim light. There is actually a light behind me hitting my head and shoulders to separate me from the background. And the light that's being used for my hair light is a GVM panel light that I have set to a warmer temperature because I want it to match my lamp, right? And you can see it's being suspended kind of like in midair by magic. No, I'm just kidding. That is being suspended by what is called a varipole. And what I love about this is it requires no screws or anything to be able to mount lightings, or if you even want to like suspend a camera or whatever you want to use that pole for, you can do so, and it just does it by tension. And so you set the tension and you lock it in place, and it's been hanging for like a year and a half now, so it's pretty sweet. But that is my hair light. And then the other light that I wanted to break down is kind of my secret sauce, but that is my fake window light that you see there. So that is another light that's actually suspended. You already know that I like to suspend lights for no reason. I'm just kidding. It's so I don't have to have any stands, right? But this light over here is a GVM 100 watt. It's very similar to my key light, as it is a cob light. But this light has a snoot that allows me to put a gobo, which gives me the effect of a window, which is pretty dope, right? But these 2 lights really makes the shot dynamic, and I believe just something else just because of those 2 elements. And a really cool accessory that allows me to control both of these lights to turn on and off is this wireless remote, and it just really, I just plug it into the adapter that sends the signal to this, and I can just turn it off and on. But to show you the power of this kind of lighting, I'm gonna turn off my key light, and you can see like the shine in my hair and kind of the shine on my shoulders, obviously the fake window. But if I turn it off, you know, and turn on my key light, it's fine. You don't necessarily need it, But when I turn this on, boy, you already know your boy drippy, crispy. You know what I'm saying?
So if you know what I'm saying.
So that is my super simple yet crispy YouTube studio setup. But I wanna break down the setup I'm essentially using right now. Right now I'm shooting at Anderson Studios, where we also do the video podcast. But this is really the creme de la creme, is that how you say it, of the YouTube studios, and we spared no expense. So this setup particularly, I would say, is not for everyone. But if you want a pro setup, then this would be it. Let's break down the camera setup that I have going on. I have the Sony a7S III. This is a full frame camera that shoots 4K at pretty much every frame rate you need. Essentially, that just means it shoots great video for talking head, kind of like what I'm doing right now, as well as any slow motion that you would like to do. So if you want to get into some slow motion and get cinematic shots, you can do it with this camera, and that's why we love it. It's just a very reliable camera, has great autofocus, great battery life, it has no record limit. And really, I would say there's nothing wrong with the camera. And we love that this camera could also shoot in S-Log at 10-bit, which essentially allows us to color grade the footage coming out of the camera. But nonetheless, love this body. Really one of the best cameras for video out on the market. And then for the lens, we have the infamous 24-70 G Master lens. We've had this lens for over like 2 years, and we've absolutely loved it. It is a zoom lens, but I love the focal length that 24-70 gives you. At 24 millimeters, you're able to get a nice wide shot. I would say a shot essentially like what you're seeing right now. It's pretty wide. And then you have the ability to zoom all the way into 70, which will really make your background look super blurry, which is what a lot of people want. But the ability to have both options is great. And at 2.8, it's really gonna give you that nice blurry background no matter what focal length you are at. And then as you could see on the front of it, we have an ND filter on a hinge. This hinge could be bought on Amazon, I believe still, but this ND filter just allows us to film outside. So if you wanna go outside, do some run and gun stuff, this allows us to maintain our settings. If you're ever shooting outside with a camera like this, you're gonna want an ND filter. So if you got a video guy and he ain't got no ND filter, you better be like, yo, where's your ND filter, bro? We need to get that crispy, blurry background even when we're outside. And then as far as what the camera is sitting on, you wanna make sure you put an expensive camera like this on a good, reliable tripod. But we have a Manfrotto tripod that's aluminum, and it's super high quality. It's taken a beating, and it's still held up over 8 years or so. But I love that it has a ball head, so if you need to level out your shot, you can do so. And it also goes pretty high up as you need it to be, which is nice and versatile. And I also love that it just has the clamps. I like the clamp tripod versus the twisty knob ones, because I just feel like you can not tighten it one day and then it just fall over. And so nonetheless, a very reliable system. And what's really cool is we actually have a quick release system from Manfrotto that we have on every tripod we have here. And it just allows you to pop off and on any camera or whatever. If you want to put a teleprompter on here, put the quick release on. But I just love it because if you pack up or you set up, that's all you have to do to get the camera on. I literally have it on this camera, so I could pop it off, do what we gotta do, and then if I just need to pop it on, could do so as well. But that is a Manfrotto quick release system. Now, we do have an audio setup that I wanna break down, and I'll break it down later in the video, but the next thing I wanna talk about is the lighting setup of this studio. Now, I don't want you to forsake lighting, okay? Lighting's very important. I would even say lighting is everything. If you pulled the trigger on the camera setup I just broke down, but you didn't invest in a good source of light, you're gonna do yourself a good disservice. And we found using lights like these, which are cob lights, produce a great soft look on your face. And really, regardless of what camera you are using, pulls out the best out of it. And specifically, this light's super awesome. It's called the GVM ST300R. And what's special about this light, other than other ones, is it's dual-sided. As you can see, there's one side that produces a light, and then there's the back side. But to make it simple and not to lose you, the front side gives you the lights you need to light your face. This is lights daytime temperature. It actually goes all the way from 2700 Kelvin, which is super warm, all the way up to 7500 Kelvin, which is super blue. So if you're like trying to match fluorescent lightings and stuff like that, you can do that. And so the versatility on this end is super great. And then the back side is actually something I've never seen before, but it's an RGB cob light. This part of the light gives you any color that you can possibly think of. And because this light is a 350 watt light, it puts out an incredible strong source of light no matter what side you use. A cool neat thing about this light that we love is because we put it on a C-stand, which is a stand that will just hold something as heavy as this, is that the controls of this light are on this kit that actually gets clamped onto a light kit, and it just holds in place. But what's so cool about having your controls here is that when your light is all raised up and super high, depending on what ceilings you have or how far out the light is, that you can just be here and control it. And so if you're, you know, if you have somebody running the camera, you could totally obviously have them dial it in as needed. But this thing is awesome because not only is it give great power, it keeps the light quiet because it's powerful. And then you can also add V-mount batteries. So you don't necessarily need to plug into AC power. You can actually just throw a V-mount battery on here. You can just be wireless and not have to worry about plugging in the power, which is nice and convenient sometimes. Another cool thing about this light and a lot of other lights that GVM offers is that they can be controlled by their app. And it's Bluetooth based, which is really nice because you can be still connected to Wi-Fi and then connect to the light. But having the ability to control it even away from this is super convenient. And then just being able to navigate the various different settings. Now this light isn't cheap. This light comes in at $900, but when you compare it to a leading brand like Aperture, which doesn't have even both sides, they would just have the one side, their light's about $950. And so having the versatility, if you were to just have one light, is awesome that the other side has an RGB option. And I'll tell you why that's cool is because of this. Now this is one of the newest additions to our set when it comes to lighting, and really it just adds a dynamic that I think is cool. As you can see, it's kind of like a fake window in the back, but you can buy this thing called a gobo or a snoot. And again, links down in the description below. But adding it onto a light like this, and this is the GVM 200D, not as powerful as this, but still a great cob light. If you're looking to save some money, go for the 200D. All these lights have the same universal mount. So what's cool about these mounts is that you can easily pop off whatever, you know, softbox you want, or if you want like a waffle thing, like we have over there, there's lights going on everywhere. Or if you even want a lantern light like this, they all go on cob lights. And so we've just super loved being able to add this to our shot. It adds a leading line, which I'll break down toward the end of this video. But all in all, getting a couple cob lights could totally level up your shot completely. And then as you see back here, we just have this light that we got on Amazon. It's about $100, but I think it just adds a cool dynamic and adds what is called a hair light or even a rim light. So when I'm sitting down and we put it in a certain specific area, it just adds a little bit of light toward my shoulder and my hair. So it kind of separates me from the background. But a super cool light. But those are really just the three main lights that we use on a setup like this. All right, so you know how I said that lighting is everything just moments ago? Well, audio is 50% of video. And similarly, if you buy a camera and you don't invest in good audio, then you're gonna be doing yourself a disservice. And so the audio setup we have for this and what we like to use is a boom setup where the mic is just framed right out of the shot, but it picks up great because of what's coming around it. But the mic we're using is the Deity S Mic 2. This is a condenser XLR mic. It just captures very natural sound and it just sounds really clean compared to other things. Right now you are listening to the lav mic that I'll talk about in just a moment that I think you should have in your kit. But going back to the Deity mic, you could see there was a little bit of a difference where the Deity mic sounds a little more crispy. But we have it on this boom setup that we absolutely love. It's on wheels, so if it needs to be moved around. And if you stand, it could totally work as well if you want to stand. But we have an XLR cable that runs all the way to the camera itself. And so let me just get a light on here. But we have the XLR plugged into this XLR setup that you can buy additional that goes on pretty much any Sony camera, but this adds XLR inputs, which is super nice. So what is it doing? It's adding whatever audio is getting plugged in into the video file. In the past, people would have, but super simple audio setup for talking head videos. You know, it's not gonna work too well if you plan on moving around. Now, I do think if you have one, you have zero. And so if you have this audio solution, I would encourage you to get another option. So if you either have a guest with you or you just want to switch it up and not use that and you want to walk around, I would recommend getting what is called the Rode Wireless Go 2. This is a wireless lavalier kit that you could buy about $300 or so. And I've actually used it this entire video. It's been clipped on to my hoodie right here, and it's great because Kyle's on the camera and it's able to just, you know, go wirelessly. And maybe you're asking, well, then why don't I just get that, then that? You totally could. You could totally just get a lav mic and let that be your main source of audio. You wouldn't need to buy the Sony thing, but we just like the XLR option because we also have a podcast that we do. And so we plug in our podcast mics, which are Shure SM7Bs, right into the camera. And so it's very convenient for that. And so it's definitely an investment that you can make to grow into. So if you're gonna do other things, but totally if you get the Rode Wireless Go 2, and that would be your main audio source, it's great. But having the other option that if you had a guest, they can be clipped up and then all that audio is going right into the video clip, which is super nice and convenient. Now, I told you that I would talk about some tips on how you can actually use a corner like this a few different ways. But if you've gotten value in this video, let me know by hitting that like button. And so real quick, let me show you how you can use this angle to get 3 different shots. So this first look is just using the white wall. We use this a lot for our church. We use it a lot for our podcasts. But having a setup like this can be made interesting simply by using what is called leading lines. Now, if you look into this shot, you'll see how there's a shelf to the over my right shoulder. I think it'll be your left screen, my right screen, or whatever. But this is making your eye look at me, you know? And so we also have that gobo light that we use. So those lights are also causing you to look at me. So anytime you can, you know, add things what are called leading lines to force people's attention towards you, do so, because it's just a wise thing to do in a creative way. And then this shelf that we have going on here just adds another layer to the shot, I think, or dimension, I guess you could say. And so even though it's just a plain wall shot, you could totally add some life to it by just adding a little bit of furniture. And these shelves that we bought are from IKEA. They're the Fajablo, I think is what they're called. But very inexpensive furniture, and we like how light they are because they can be moved around, because we could switch up the shots like this shot right here. Now this would be another style that you can go for when it comes to using this setup. So the first shot that you saw was a little bit more compressed, had a flat wall behind me. And with this shot, it's actually the lens is all the way zoomed out to 24. So you're gonna get a little bit more of a wider shot, kind of more YouTube-y, and I would even say a little more intimate. It feels like I'm like right there with you, right? But I like shooting like this, especially at this focal length lately, because I like seeing my hands in the shot at most of the time, as well as the ability to zoom in and out as needed, so you can always do that. But what you see behind me is actually not a black wall. This is a black piece of photography paper. It's about a 9-foot width roll. And we made a video on how you can actually conform a space with a fake corner like this. But nonetheless, this is a shot you can achieve. So we had the one shot with the white wall, and then we have another shot like this. I'd like to know down in the comments which one you like better, but let's check out the third shot, which is using the corner as your center point, which we often do for our podcast, the Think Media podcast. This is the shot that I was talking about when using the corner as your main angle. And the camera's actually pretty far from me. We just have it zoomed in at about 60 or 70, which is giving us that nice compression. But having a shot like this is great. And it looks great because, again, the leading lines, everything is kind of focusing your attention at me, the subject. So love this shot, but I actually forgot to mention during the sound portion of this, you know, this sounds really good here, really because of treatment. I didn't break down treatment during audio, but if you have a very big space, but you're not treating your space, then you're gonna get some echo and it's gonna bounce around. But we actually have a ceiling sound panel that will prevent the sound from bouncing up. We have a rug on the floor that also prevents it, because this is a hardwood floor loft that we use. And then along the walls, we have more of these sound panels. And again, we'll post everything in the description below. So leveling up your audio also requires leveling up your audio treatment. So those are some ideas on building out your YouTube studio to create videos from, whether you're doing podcasts, talking head videos, or whatever. I hope you got some value in this video. And if you'd like to check out another video from us here at Think Media, just click or tap the screen. Can't wait to see you in a future video. Peace.